Welcome back to Coffee with Carl. Before we begin today, I would ask you to watch a YouTube video by Mark Gungor called A Tale of Two Brains. It's a really entertaining short piece. It's about 10 to 13 minutes long, and it's pertinent to what we're going to do. So either switch off now and watch it, but it will be useful for what we're about to do. So now I'm assuming that you've watched his 10-minute video, A Tale of Two Brains. In this video, Mark Gungor describes how women's brains are different from men's brains. Now, this is not an attempt at sexual politics or psychology. It's to get some idea or feel of what we put in place when we think. And to help us with that, I brought along a little brain of my own. And here it is. Now, if you've been watching The Tale of Two Brains, you will know that he talks about men's brains being very much like this. They're boxes. Now we've got a big box in the middle, and on the other side there's a brain with no lines. This is the female brain, as he calls it. Everything wired together and everything connected to everything. Now you'll notice this big box in the middle between them. Well, in a way, although Mark Gungor doesn't say this, all these boxes that male brains love to have, they derive their boxiness from one big box. Well, actually it's a little box, but it's been exploded into a big box. How can we explain that? Well, there's a Chinese story about a magician who told his apprentice to look after this fish that's in a tank of water, and on no account to take that fish out of the tank. In a way, it's a little bit like Genesis, isn't it? Whatever you do, don't eat of the fruit. Well, of course, once you say that, that's the very thing you're going to do. So the little boy takes the fish out of the water and it turns into a monster. Fortunately for him, it started to rain. The fish shrank and he was able to put it back in the tank. Now, when we talk about the male brains made of lots of little boxes, in a way they're taken right out of context from that way of thinking, which was depicted in that video as the female brain, but nonetheless, it's that way of thinking which sees connections in everything. And they all stem from one thing. But that's not really the subject here. The subject here is that one empty box that Mark Gungor referred to as the one the others feed off. You open it and there's nothing there. Well, as it happens, when you look at science, it's a kind of projection of box thinking, because its very beginnings are like an empty box, and it's called the principle of inertia. That is, that what doesn't need explaining is nothing happening. Well, that's the typical bloke. What are you doing? Nothing. Very hard for women to understand, apparently. But us men seem to do it quite well. So it seems an odd thing that this principle is actually suited to the male way of thinking. That is, doing nothing. So, what is something happening is anything that disturbs the state of doing nothing. Now, you may think these are just psychological terms, and that these don't really have much to do with the real world. But if you've ever had to phone a company or a business, you'll find the influence of that nothing way of thinking, of putting things into boxes. Because now you're invited to press buttons 1, 2, 3 or 4, as if the person who's designed those boxes knows every kind of question that you're going to ask. And then when you get through to one of those, there's another series of boxes, and so it goes on. And that kind of is very symbolic. It's almost as if get enough boxes into place and you can cover the whole of reality. But the problem is that there is nothing in the whole of reality that corresponds to nothing happening. Everywhere you look, it doesn't matter where, even when there seems to be nothing happening, it's only for a short while. So it's a very odd thing that we have in place in our culture a way of thinking about change based on principles of no change. So what this has to do with gravity, we'll find out next time. Cheers.